Thank you for tuning in to Watching the World. It's a privilege to be able to speak to you guys today and talk about a subject that's on the minds of many people, especially a lot of young men and young women too. But I want to say, starting off, this particular show is particularly for men. Because of the nature of some of the things that I'm going to discuss, it might be offensive to some women. Not that I'm saying anything derogatory about women, but it might be some of the things that might be hard to hear. Now, I've been on YouTube, I've been on this earth quite some time now, and I've never heard anyone break down this type of content, but today I'm going to go there. And guess what, folks? I'm going to go there whether you like it or not, whether people choose to unsubscribe or whatever. But it's a discussion that we need to have. And the perfect time to talk about this subject is right now. And you want to know why? Because I've been at Diddy's trial every day in the main courtroom 95% of the time. So that means I've been sitting probably about 5 rows behind Diddy. I've been able to see the jurors, and I often document how they're expressing their faces. What do they think about this point? I've even sat with some of the best people in this world. A body language expert sat next to me. She came on the channel and she also broke down some of the body language that you saw with Diddy. And I've been able to ask her, sitting with her, what do you think about when this juror did this, or when the judge even did this, or when Diddy sat this way, or when Diddy often takes off his glasses? But I want to tell you, on when they gave these closing doc arguments, I want you to know that I saw Diddy do something I never seen him do before. I saw him sit all the way back up against this little wall, basically behind his. Well, actually, there's some guys sitting there, but he pulled himself back with his head down, almost like he was trying to leave the place, almost like he wanted some alone time. Because when they did these closing arguments, they really broke down all of these crimes that they claim that he has done that proves that he ran a criminal enterprise. Count number one is racketeering. Count number two was sex trafficking of Cassie Ventura. Count number three is sex trafficking across state lines. Okay. Count number four is sex trafficking of Jane Doe. And count number five is sex trafficking of Jane Doe across state lines. So these are some very serious charges that if he's found convicted, he could spend, just like R. Kelly, 30 years to life in prison. So it's a very serious matter. But what I want to talk about today is when it comes to young men, there are a lot of things in this case that you may have never heard about. But if they ever lock you up for it, believe me, saying that you do not know will not be sufficient to save you from the hands of the law. So we're going to get into it today. One thing I wanted to point out is that during the closing arguments, even though the prosecutors went through point by point and they put together the witnesses, we saw sex workers come in and talk about their experience with Cassie or with Jane and Diddy and so forth. They were explaining it. And a lot of times the things that they were saying were jiving with the other witnesses. They brought in a total of I believe, 34, 32, 34 witnesses in this case. But here's the key point. The government brought in all the witnesses, and a lot of times we didn't understand how they were tying together. They brought in a video expert, a psychologist, just all these different bits and pieces. But do you know what they did in the end? For the last 4 or 5 days of straight trial, they brought in agents from the government, the Southern District of New York, and these individuals were breaking down charts of people, places, and things. And so they would show us exactly how, at this particular freak off, there were 3 people in the room. They asked the specialist, the agent, well, how do you know that there were 3 people in the room? And you know what the agent said? The agent says, we only document people that were there by what we saw on the video. So they're not even going by hearsay or what Cassie or Diddy or anybody else said. They line up people according to metadata from videos in the hotel lobbies around hotels. That's how serious it is when it comes to the United States government when you're trying to commit crimes, whether you know it or not. They also showed Diddy's American Express. They show you how much the rooms cost. They bring in from the hotel folks, they bring in the manager of the lobby. Can you imagine that? And they break down all the policies of how your alias would work if you're a superstar, and they won't use your regular name to safeguard your identity. So all of this built a picture, but they show you the itineraries from all of these freak offs. They also show you how Jules, who started off in New York, they show you text messages between Cassie and Diddy. Oh, maybe we should get this sex worker. Or between Diddy and Jane. Oh, let's get this sex worker. Oftentimes, the women were more for it than Diddy. There are on record, which people are not telling you, there are times when Diddy is saying, listen, we don't have to have a freak off. But the ladies are like, let's do it. Whatever for you, I want to do this, right? So the case is really topsy turvy because it's so hard to follow because the minute the government is saying Diddy is this mob boss basically that's welding people around, but then you see the females that are down to get down, and it's often terrifying just to sit there and hear because they've even proven in this case like a lot of the witnesses have lied under oath. And so, if they're lying under oath, how do we determine when they're not lying? There is a ring of truth in the case, but today I want to focus with the men, the young men especially. Maybe someday when I'm long gone, this video will still be standing and my future grandsons can hear this video too. But I think it needs to be said, and I'm going to say it in a way as though I were talking to them. Here's the big deal about this case. Sorry, somebody's calling me. The big deal about this case is during the defense. Now, on Friday, I stated to the lady that was sitting in front of me, I said, in order for Diddy to stand a chance for this case, his attorneys are going to have to go after the government and they're going to have to say that this was a witch hunt, right? And there's a good argument for that. But I didn't tell that to the attorney. And do you know that's exactly what Mark Agnifilo did? He went before the jury and he said, you cannot trust the government. And he put it this way. He said, Cassie, Jane, Mia, they didn't come down to the Southern District and say, hey, Sean Diddy Combs did this to me. He said the government saw Cassie's lawsuit, saw her lawsuit. And that's when they started their investigation and they targeted Diddy. So he did the exact thing because I'm saying to myself, the evidence is so strong in this case, I don't see how anybody could get around it unless they go at that angle. And that's what they did. Well, the judge reprimanded the attorney so bad. It was the prosecution that stood up and said, you know, he should not have went there. We made agreements prior to this that he wouldn't talk about these type of things. But the attorney went there anyway. And one thing that I've learned in court, they use a term where you can't unring the bell. So after he said that to the jury, that might have an extreme impact on this case, how it turns out. We don't know. Possibly it could even lend toward a hung jury. I don't know. We have to see. But I will tell you the case has been very strong. I mean, even last week, people were telling you online, oh, they dropped the charges. No, they didn't drop the charges. That's why you didn't hear me say that. I try to maintain integrity with you guys. What they did drop were the charges or the predicate acts that had attempted kidnapping, attempted arson. So you understand? The underlying charge is still there, and they actually broke it down, these 8 predicate acts during the closing arguments. So a lot of people, they don't understand law, and I'm not a lawyer myself, but I do have common sense. But they hear things, and not only are they in the courtroom, they're not in the courtroom, they're hearing and they're passing to their channels what they're interpreting from another YouTuber or from the media at large. But let's really get into what Mark Agnifilo broke down that I think is going to be tremendous in helping you guys understand how to move forward in life. One thing I want to highlight, and Mark did not hit this point, and maybe I shouldn't go there, but I am. I would like to know, and I do plan to interview Diddy at some point, so stay tuned, okay? But anyway, and also his family members, I was with some of them last night. I'm definitely going to bring them to you when this is all said and done. So just stay with me. I'm going to bring you some of the best material, but not trying to degrade people or make them feel uncomfortable. I just want people to tell their story. But anyway, the point that no one has really touched, as I said in trial every day, is the fact that what prompted Cassie to file that lawsuit against Diddy when she did. Now, I'm not some Diddy supporter, but I'm just breaking down the facts. I'm trying to open up your mind, guys, to understand what's happening here. Because one day you may have to sit in that seat. You could very well, if you don't move with intelligence. So Diddy had came out. He sued the big company. I won't state their name, but you know who it is, right? He had a long relationship of alcohol selling with them. He sued them for racism, right? Then all of a sudden, Diddy started talking about he wants to start. Black people need to have their own party. Remember that? And then all of a sudden, he got hit with this Cassie lawsuit, and the whole cards came tumbling down. Now, that doesn't take away from the vile things that Diddy has been accused for and he has done. We're not even addressing that. I've already addressed that many times on the channel. But what we're talking about is what prompted her. Remember when the case came up with Jay-Z? There's a guy that I actually know, and he alleges that they sent private investigators to his door. So what I'm saying is, was someone sent to Cassie to start this whole thing and asking, was there some big story here of snooping around that led to this lawsuit to kind of counter what he was doing, right? I don't know, but that's a question. I think that's a valid question that all of us could rightly ask. I haven't heard anyone mention that. So I'm going to leave it there. But let's get back to what the attorney was breaking down. When it comes to this particular case, there are key features that a lot of men today are getting involved in, folks. And I don't know why everybody's calling me. Sorry. There are a lot of things that men are getting involved in. Let me tell you what one of them are. We have this thing called passport guys. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Where they're flying to other countries to have relations with women who are okay. I mean, beautiful women that will do pretty much anything for $100. A lot of men are getting involved with that. And do you know what's also happening? A lot of that is happening here in the United States. But not only that, you have people that are big time celebrities that are getting caught up the same way. Other men, just like us, and especially if you have money, you might be inclined to do some of these crazy things. I don't think Diddy would have been able to have any of these women do any of this stuff if he only had $10 in his pocket. I think the average guy that has $10 in his pocket, the average woman is going to tell him, hit the road, Jack, and don't come back no more. That may not be the case all times, but what I'm saying is money plays a part. We see what's happening with Shannon Sharp, right? That's a big issue. I don't know the details. I'm not getting into that. I'm not making any claims about him. But do you understand what I'm saying? The OnlyFans world has gotten him caught up in some weird scenario when he was operating and still probably is operating at a high level. I haven't been paying attention. But this is a big factor. You know what it all boils down to? Flying women from one state to the other or transporting them from one state to the other, paying women. Let me tell you what happened in this case. It's mind blowing. When it came to Cassie, the government is saying that Diddy was sex trafficking her when she was basically his main girlfriend, side chick, something on that level. But because of the way the whole thing developed, she's now being portrayed as a sex worker. In fact, under her last testimony that she gave in court, I'm sitting there, I heard the words come out of her mouth. The prosecutor asked her, why would you let this happen, participate? She says, because I was a sex worker. So she framed herself as a sex worker. That's a big problem for this case when he's on trial for sex working. And also, they show in these charts where he's flown her from New York to Miami. And dig this, when it comes to Jane, he told Jane from the beginning, this is a open relationship because now Jane came along some 10 years after Cassie. So he's very upfront. This is an open relationship. I have multiple women. But the problem was she fell in love with Diddy And she started to resent all these other women because what she testified, she said that Diddy was showing her the time of her life. When they first met, she was also seeing another rapper before, right? That's all been in the media. I won't get into the details because the judge doesn't want us identifying Jane Doe in any way. But she talked about how he flew her to Turks and Caicos for 9 days. They had a great time. Then they went for another 5 days to the Bahamas, and then she flew back home. Later in the trial, we learned that Diddy flew some multiple women to the Bahamas right after that. So now imagine she gets home and she see on Instagram now Diddy is whining and dining other women. Well, he told her legitimately that this is what was going to happen, but maybe she thought with herself and who she is in her small town, or what the relationship she had with other people in the past. Maybe she thought she had this greatness and that she could change Diddy's mind, which we learned that that's not going to happen. But here's the problem. Let's say, for instance, you meet a girl online and you live in New York, my state, right? You see that? This is my state, folks, but I'm from Virginia. And let's say you say, I'm going to fly you. You know, everybody say you go to Vegas, right? What happens in Vegas, stay in Vegas. So she lives in Florida. You meet her online. You fly her to Florida, to Las Vegas, right? And you give her money. Okay. There's no big deal. But let's say what happens, like in this case, at some point she starts to hate you because she see that you're a player. And a lot of you guys are players, right? You got to do better. Now she comes forward and she says, "Oh, he paid me to go to Vegas." And not only that, like in the case of Jane, Diddy is paying her rent, guys. He's paying her rent 10,000 every month. The prosecutors are painting that as an exchange for sex. And guess who paid for her legal as she came to court? Her lawyer stood up in her behalf, folks. Guess who's paying for that? Diddy. Guess who took the stand against Diddy? Jane, the same woman that he's taking care of financially now. I don't have any dog in the fight, but I'm trying to tell you guys that this is a very serious matter. And if you keep listening to these guys online who tell you, forget about a traditional relationship and just pay women when you need it, they're going to get you jammed up in a way that not even Jesus can save you if you are a believer. Because this is what they're doing. You know what they did for Diddy? I'm sitting in court. I see it for myself. They use R. Kelly, one man RICO, to line Diddy up. So when Diddy's attorney made the argument, her name is Shapiro. She's one of the best out there, guys. I'm telling you. But you don't want to have to go down this road. She stood up and she was explaining, like, in order to have a RICO, she explained it. You have to have another distinct other enterprise. In this case, you only have Diddy's enterprise. So she made that argument. But the government is using R. Kelly's case to establish, wait, we have had a case where there's a one-man RICO. See what I'm saying? You see how complicated it gets? So you know what's going to happen now? With Diddy's case, now they set the precedent to now look in your bedroom and under certain complaints, or maybe like in this case, let me tell you guys, this is not just about women. This is about men too. Because some people choose to love other men of their same kind, right? Like, for instance, TD Jakes. I'm going to talk about it. I know people don't want to hear it. There are several cases, at least two cases that are in court about TD Jakes right now, but the public has it on lockdown, probably because of his holy stature. And I'm not going to go there. I'm not talking bad about TD Jakes, but what I'm saying that even him, the man of holiness, the man of Jesus, the man of God, has men that are making accusations that he did basically horrible things to them. Now you're going to ignore these men because they are men, and men already don't have a voice most of the time, right? That's just the way society is set up. I'm not complaining, but I'm just telling you guys like it is. So if you think you can fly women to other states and give them money, because see what happens is, right, most guys are average and most guys make average money. Most guys in my financial background, when I was doing banking, the average black male was lucky to hit 60,000 a year. Okay. So Let's say a guy becomes a ball player. Now he has some millions, or maybe he steps up, he has his 401k, whatever reason, right? But he's locked into a certain kind of female. And you guys know that I'm telling you the truth. You're not going to hear it online, but I'm going to say it. You're only locked into a certain caliber female. So now when the guy gets money, now you see him go and he gets his Barbie doll, his play toy, right? This is real facts. I'm just talking this show is for men, so I'm assuming that this is men listening to me, right? So he goes and get his Barbie doll and he wants to he finds her on OnlyFans and she says, "Listen, you have to I'll do something strange for a large piece of change." Right? One time in my business, I had this guy, and I was actually selling a vehicle to him. And he showed up to me. Actually, no, it was to a female, selling her this car. This was probably about 12 years ago. She showed up with this guy, and he was paying for the car. And I'm like, why is he paying for the car? He's related to you? No, 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 no. I'm a stripper, and he came into the strip club last night. His mom just died. He got 30,000. Those girls shook him down. They spent all his money and he didn't even get a kiss. I want you guys to think about that. Nobody's talking about it, but I'm going to talk about it. So, you're doing you're taking these leaps because you have money and now you can give a girl 1,000, 5,000 to fly them to Vegas and have such a great time of your life, right? But do you understand what the government's going to do to you when they find out? And when that girl's mad at you and she says all sorts of things that you were doing to her and you flew her there? And then they're going to say, where did she fly out of? And they're going to pull up, just like in Diddy's case, they're going to pull up the itinerary of that female. And let me tell you, they use a service called Cellbrite. And Cellbrite will pull up your text messages for the last 10, 20 years. Easy. So you don't want to find this stuff out the hard way. You have to change the way you have to get back to some sort of traditional way of thinking and stop believing the hype of these guys online trying to tell you you can just pay for what you want and get around having a traditional family. Because that's why, if you look at the big picture, a lot of kids can't find a father to save their life. And because the world is changing, people are not getting along. They don't even try to make it work. Oh, the kids are going to suffer. Who cares about the kids? Kid grew up, they don't have a father now, or they see the dad beating the mom. Like in this case, there's nothing but beatings. The whole case, beatings, beatings, beating. Diddy beating. They show on the video, and they make Diddy sit there and watch that video when his children are right behind him, about 3 rows. Folks, can you imagine that? That has to be worse than going to jail because your kids they question you. I know in my case, they'll ask about things that happened before they were born. They want to know, well, why didn't this work out? Whatever, or how did you become successful? They want to know. And when you have 6 kids, 7 kids, that's a lot of different answers you have to give. But anyway, that's what I wanted to break down. But listen, it gets a little bit deeper. In the case of Jane Doe, let me tell you how they got Diddy on fraud. Okay, sex trafficking with fraud. Diddy is in Miami. Jane Doe, I believe she's out west, right? And they had a breakup period. Diddy flies her to Miami. And Diddy is talking with her, texting back and forth, right? And she's telling Diddy, I want to spend time with you. All you do is put me in these freak offs where other men are coming to bang me out, basically. So basically, I'm going to tell you guys what this is about. Diddy had so much money, enormous amounts of money, that if he liked porn, because everybody testified that he was basically whacking off in the background, right? He was bringing porn to real life on his couch, on the bed. That's what it was about. That's what this whole thing is about, bringing porn. They actually say it in court. So he's flying a girl that he trusts. He's paying her rent, paying her way through. On several times, he gives her money, 10,000 one time, 20,000 another. He's flying her. She's in the airplane, and her service is going in and out. Like when I'm on the train in the morning and I'm talking to some of you guys as I'm going to court. When her Wi-Fi comes back on at some point, she sees Diddy's remarks about they're supposed to be whining and dining. She says to Diddy, I don't want to be with some strange man. I just want to be with you. Diddy tells her, that's what we're going to do, baby. I'm going to take good care of you. I'm going to wine and dine you, probably like what they did over in Turks and Caicos. The government shows through text messages, people are calling me crazy. Sorry. The government shows at the same time simultaneously, right, that Diddy is texting one of the sex workers. Right when he's telling her, you don't have to worry about a sex worker, they have the records at the same time in the air, and they call that fraud. And let me tell you how they call it fraud. They had some exhibits, the DX 331. Yeah, I'm telling you, that's how much I'm on this case. I even know the exhibits. DX 331. There's two exhibits. You know what they use? They use Jane's personal notes from her diary. And she wrote to herself that Diddy is a pathological liar. So that's the exhibits that they put in court. They wanted to put in court to show that he used a material fact. He lied about a material fact, saying that I'm going to wine and dine you, when in actuality, I'm going to throw you into this little freak off, or what other people might consider to be a small orgy. That's fraud. So a lot of men, maybe they learn it from their fathers, their uncles. They think it's okay to mislead women. Diddy's case is setting a precedent on sex and about the way you communicate to women. Believe me, it's going to come into the world of divorce. It's going to come into the world of just life in general. If you think you can, and imagine if it turns into a civil event where women are actually showing that you're out here playing them. Now, there's two sides to this. And in the defense, and I'm going to get to you guys' comments in a minute. In the defense, they showed very strongly, guys, that Cassie was a player. She was strong. She wasn't a victim like everybody is saying that she was. She played Diddy. She played Kid Cudi at the same damn time. And she worked hard. She got a burner phone just to show that she can do a balancing act with both men. And in many cases, they showed that she cheated on him just as much as he was cheating on her. It was a very toxic relationship, but the attorney broke down and he was crying in court. Can you imagine that? Yeah, the attorney was crying during the closing arguments. Like, I thought we was at a funeral. He started reading Jane Doe's exchange with Diddy that was very emotional about the breakup. I think it was Jane. It wasn't Cassie, I think. I think it was Jane. Yeah, Jane. And he started breaking down. Like he had to get himself together to finish the closing arguments. He got emotional. He wasn't boo-hooing, but you know how it is when you get choked up. But that's how serious this thing is, right? But Cassie, in many cases, was just as manipulative as the man. And I know that you guys have dealt with that in life too. Everybody always point to the man. The man's such a player. Nobody really wants to talk about the fact that women are players too. Now, she's a victim, okay, according to the court. Even from what I could see from the video, she's definitely a victim. But I'm telling a whole story here to help you guys understand that you have to move with intelligence going forward. You can't be out here flying girls to other states. Now, listen, you could say this guy, oh, look at him. He has a suit on, his hat, or he's just some goofy guy talking. But when the feds come lock you up, you're going to need somebody to bail you out, Jack. Because if you don't listen to me, it's going to happen to you. Because one case begets another case, and they're going to be using Diddy's case for eternity. And here's another problem that I have with this whole thing. Why is it that at the highest level, right? Let's go to the highest level. And to me, the highest level is of religion, because everybody, they put their God first, right? Then after God, you have some people believe it's Jesus, or they believe Jesus is God, depending on what church you go to. After God, based on even the scriptures, it says the head of the congregation, right? And then it's the church, right? It's the church. So if you want to put somebody on a high level, you would put TD Jakes. Even TD Jakes is jammed up. He's dealing with some stuff, right? Look at Suge Knight. Look at Bill Cosby, right? Look at Diddy. Look at R. Kelly. The best to ever do it. Michael Jackson. Look, allegations, right? Even Whitney Houston went out under some strange circumstances, right? Marvin Gaye, father killed him. Why is this happening, right, in the black community? Nobody's really talking about it. But the people that were big when I was graduating around 95, a lot of those guys are locked up or they're broke or they're somewhere full of shame and they can barely buy a Happy Meal at McDonald's. Why is that the case? When you look at Bon Jovi and all those different Guns and Roses and all these guys, I guarantee you they still got a mansion. I guarantee you, right? Why are the brothers getting hit with these RICOs? See, we're so caught on Diddy, right? And let me tell you about how this thing go because I've been at the courthouse every day. It makes no difference to me if I make a dime from this. I don't need this, right? I don't need it. You don't see me asking for money. But when you do this for money, now you have to tell a salacious story to get people to click, right? So with that, you start getting these stories about Diddy having drugs in the baby oil. Guess what? No drugs in the baby oil. It was testified in court. There is no TD Jakes. Remember all the rumors about TD Jakes having to come to court and testify? Not true. No mention. Okay. When it comes to Meek Mill, Justin Bieber, all that stuff is not in court. They made no mention about celebrities having a white party, going in the back room and somebody screaming to some salacious video. None of that stuff is in court. But you will continue to have that as long as you have pay for click because people are just going to write whatever they want to write just to make you click, just so they can eat at night. That's all. They're just trying to eat. They're trying to pay for their hotel room. They're trying to just make life work. And they don't care about what it does to somebody who else has a good reputation or what have you. They don't care that this man is going to be pretty much given potentially 30 years to life. They don't care about that. But here's the problem. Like during the times of slavery or segregation, right? I think a big part of it was that white people and blacks saw things that were happening that were wrong. It wasn't just the blacks, the white people too. They moved along with King to kind of push this stuff to make it better for the existence that we have now. Let's not pretend that that did not happen. And so now, in this case where the government is putting a RICO on a guy that probably deserves about 10, 20 years or something like that, they're going to charge him with that RICO, the same RICO that they charged John Gotti when they're alleging that people were being murdered. In this court case, Diddy does not have blood on his hand. He had a lot of baby oil and Astroglide. So he's going to sit in that seat that R. Kelly is sitting in too with 30 years or to life. And guess what? At best, what we're doing, we're looking at all these stations just talk about him. And he did a lot of wrong. It's all in court. I've covered it to the T. I don't want to sit here and tell you over and over again that the guy was a monster. He was on drugs. You know what else I didn't hear? Because now that I have an inside track to his family, the guy's been clean for a year and he's taking therapy. None of that came out in court. Why wouldn't your attorney mention that during the closing arguments? I will never understand. Why didn't his attorney, and I'm sorry for going there, but I'm just telling you guys, why didn't his attorney talk about the fact that Bonner, who was Cassie's best friend at some point, right? The excellent attorney out of, I think she worked on Young Thug's case, Nicole Westmoreland, she did a cross-examination on Bonner. And she brung out how Bonner was basically a drug partner with Cassie. Bonner would find the drugs and Cassie would buy it with the money. Now, if you listen to the prosecution, they say that, Cassie was being coerced. She couldn't make a dime. And Diddy just basically had her locked away doing free calls. But then when the truth comes out, you find out that Cassie's out here buying drugs. And she admitted that she bought drugs without Diddy. She had her own lifestyle going on enough to where she was seeing, what's this guy's name? Michael B. Jordan. So she's seeing other men. She has her own life going on. But the way the feds are slanting the case, it's real heavy against Diddy, but in the testimonies, we're seeing material lies coming from individuals that are proven. I'm going to show it to you right now, and then I'm going to go. Well, I'm going to answer your questions first, or whatever. Right? Bonner testified, and I keep saying this point because the under closing arguments, Diddy attorney did not hit this point. But even though they asked for a mistrial, Bonner said that on September 26, 2016, Diddy had her hanging off the balcony and he took her and he threw her down on the furniture. She provided pictures of her bruise marks, and the pictures had metadata. Okay. We all went to lunch. We came back. Do you know what this great attorney, man? You got to look her up, Nicole Westmoreland. You know what she showed? Diddy was in New York at the time. He wasn't even in LA. He wasn't there. It's almost like Johnny Cochran. If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. I'm not talking for all the charges, but what I'm saying is this is a big problem for me because they asked for a mistrial and the judge came right back and said no, which that's understandable. But dig this, it gets worse than that, guys. And you got to listen to me. I'm trying to save a lot of you guys a lot of headache and heartache in life, right? My better days are behind me, Jack. Believe that, you know. But you guys that are in your 20s or 19, you're just out here like rabbits, just wanting to go with every girl you see. You know, those days, it's going to cost you your life if you're not careful. Okay. But let me explain to you this. And this is the problem that I have with this case, right? And I'm going to preface it by saying this. Cassie had a baby during the trial. Okay. Right before she had her baby, they brought on this guy. His name is Nash, Deontay Nash. They brought on Mia. They brought on Capricorn Clark. Would you believe that these individuals are still talking to each other as they're witnessing in court and talking about the same events? How is that possible? That's just like having my brother and I, we're on trial and we're comparing stories. He takes the stand first. He comes back in the evening and I talk to him and I said, "What did they say to you?" "Oh, they said that." "Oh, okay. All right. I'll make sure I say the same thing." Or at least it warns me of what's to come. Now, Diddy's attorney did ask, "Have you guys been talking to each other about it?" "Oh, no, 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 no. No, we talked about the baby." Deontay says, "I'm just talking to Cassie to tell her what to wear to court," allegedly. How can that be? It just mind blowing. But this is where you really need to understand, right? And Diddy, I don't care what he did, he deserves a fair trial because all of us do, right? We deserve a fair trial. That's a part of being an American citizen, right? The girl Bonner testified, and you have to get this point, guys. This is a strong material fact about this case. She testified that her and Cassie basically came up when Cassie filed her lawsuit. They were comparing stories and they made up basically because they couldn't remember, maybe. And they're saying, well, he threw me off the back or he had me hanging on the balcony at a hotel. What hotel was? Let's say this hotel. And then I think they say Cassie said, "Oh no, I have a balcony at my apartment. Let's say the apartment." Okay. So they're basically putting these stories together. So if that's the case and she's testifying against Cassie, why wouldn't the defense attorney point to that and say, you really need to consider everything that's been said in this case? Because she's testifying that Cassie was instrumental in making up a key story that was refuted in court. Now, does it mean it really didn't happen? I like to tell the whole story. When we came back from break, the prosecution came back and they said that basically there was some text message strand where Cassie had wrote in text to someone and said, "Diddy is here." And this is, remember I told you this is allegedly on September the 26th, 2016. But on September the 30th, Cassie sends a text message to someone that says, "Diddy just came in the house and he ran straight for Bonner." So maybe it is that it happened on the 30th and there's some sort of issue with her hanging over the balcony or what have you. But what I'm saying is in court, this was a material fact that was proven to be inaccurate. But I just want to, but for the sake of you guys getting the full picture, I wanted to give you a fuller story about this. So this is all that I'm saying. Life is full. A lot of guys are only as good as what they're told from their parents coming up. So, in other words, if you see your dad beat your mother, you might grow up and want to beat your wife or your girlfriends, right? A lot of guys, maybe their uncles or somebody abused them. And when you're young, like around 5 or 6, you're trusting. We're new to life, so you usually would go after your mother or your father's God. They say, "Yeah, Jesus is your God," and you say, "Okay, Jesus, I'm here to serve you." That same kid, if he grew up in the Middle East, right, he'd be following Allah because that's what his parents would say. And often your religion is the lens through which you see your God. So a lot of your behavior and so forth might come from that type of religion. Religion is a big part, especially in the Southern Belt where I came from. Religion is a big part. But what I'm trying to tell you is a lot of things that happen to kids in 5 and 6 could be atrocious, but they don't know any better because all they know is that they live with their mother and the mother's brother, who is their uncle, who touches them at night. And then they grow up and they think that they have this deviancy and they think it's okay, or it has a dramatic effect on their life. And so in this case, when it came to Diddy, and I didn't want to go there, but I will for the sake of just trying to give you guys some real insight. They showed that Diddy was bipolar in this particular case and that he struggles with mental illness issues. They're going to probably go through that toward the very end of this trial when it comes, if he is found guilty and they get into the whole sentencing. I'm pretty sure the defense is going to use, it was testified that he was on Prozac and Xanax and all of these things that fall into that type of category. So mental illness is another big portion of this story. And a lot of times, if you're having mental illness, you might be more inclined to do alcohol or drugs because you're just trying to calm down those thoughts. You're just trying to take the pain away. I think there's a point where Elon Musk says that ketamine helps you focus. And that's why I think he's admitted on record, right, allegedly, to using ketamine. I saw the video. It seemed to be accurate to me, but I'm not sure. So people tend to take drugs. I know in my family, I had a family member struggling from cancer, and he refused to get help from the doctors. And so he went to the street to get drugs to take the pain away, and it took his life. So, mental illness, a lot of times as a man, you're in a relationship with women. Now, I'm really going to get in trouble for this, but I don't really care. I'm telling you, I'm here today, and we're gonna go there, right? A lot of times, men do not get any credit for the things they do, and that causes a lot of strife inside. I've seen it throughout my life. I witnessed it as a young kid. I saw men come home and give their wives the complete check, and she'll give him like $10, $20 to get through the week, and then cheat on the guy. See, people don't want to talk about this type of stuff, right? I've seen it. I saw it as a kid. And I've seen it throughout my adult life. People don't realize how much sometimes men struggle. And also, a lot of times, the uncles have deviant behavior and they pass it on to their nephew. So instead of telling nephew, a lot of times the uncles don't have what it takes to get the nephew to a next level in the Black community. I saw this myself. And then even sometimes when the nephew goes to the higher level, the uncles say, "Oh, look at him. He think he's all that." See, we have a big problem. A lot of this stuff comes from slavery. I'm a firm believer in DNA, and a lot of these things are programmed. They're just in our blood, right? But these are discussions that we need to have because usually when people have mental problems, people will talk about you, but they won't try to help you get the help you need. And so Diddy had so much money, nobody would check him, right? And it's very hard when a person is that prominent. Usually, when you have a lot of money, the focus of the time, most people are just trying to survive. Like right now, a lot of people are trying to survive. They're just trying to make it through the week. They want money. And so if you have a lot of money, you're going to get those calls and say, hey, can you lend me this? Can you lend me that? They're not thinking about, you depressed today? Do you have a cancer diagnosis? Do you have diabetes? Did your stomach hurt last night? As a man, are you sad because your mother died at a young age? Or maybe you lost your wife, you're on your second wife now. Maybe your baby mother is not letting the child come and see you, right? So men go through a lot of stuff, but if they see you crying as a man, they're gonna say what? They're gonna say you're a punk. Yeah. And your buddies, a lot of times you're afraid to talk to your buddies about your problem. A lot of times I've seen guys talk to their buddies about their relationship, and you know what happened? The guy go try to get the girl. Diddy brought Cassie to Kid Cudi, who's now a big victim, right? Kid Cudi was supposed to produce the album. Him and Kid Cudi were good friends, associates, and Kiddy took his girl. Kid Cudi, I call him Kiddy. Kid Cudi took his girl, right? So I know that this is a tough video for you guys, but I know you guys know what I'm talking about. And I know some of you guys are probably were crying last night because you're trying to be the savior for everybody in your life. And guess what? The people in your life don't give two pennies. You give them $100 and they said, why not 110? That's the story of being a man. Yeah. And all of this things that we're going through, you cannot be foolish. Fellas, I don't care. Everybody could counsel me after today. I don't care. Everybody could unsubscribe to my channel. I'm going to be just great in life. Okay? Believe me. Believe me. But let me tell you something. They're going to use what's happening to Diddy, R. Kelly. If you don't think that affects you on the side of the road, when police officers start throwing your butt up against the wall or the grass and say, sit your butt down on the ground, and now you're a prominent man in life, police officer pull you over, you're a black man, don't think that Diddy, and look, you give a man $1 billion and they're going to say, look what he does. That affects you in your small hometown, especially the other day. I sent out some of my boys, my guys. We were doing a delivery down in North Carolina. Yeah, I'm a real guy in real life. And they broke down in West Virginia. I spent every dime that I wanted to get them back up and running because they were in West Virginia. And who knows what could happen to them after sundown. So do not get it twisted, folks. I come on here and I do these shows, but I'm not afraid to tell you guys the truth. And I don't care if you don't like my appearance or what you think about me as a person. I could care less, really. But I will tell you this, we have to wake up. And it's going to be a sad day when the government starts to charge your local mechanic with RICO, and when they hit you with a RICO over some craziness, and now you're looking at 30 years to life and you didn't even kill someone like the mob. So so here's what I'm saying. Diddy did a lot of dirt, and he needs to be, as my grandmother said, he needs to be beat with an ugly stick, right? He needs to be beat. But the time does not match the crime. And nobody's saying anything because everybody's out there just trying to be the first one to tell a story. But what's happening with Diddy, right? Even though bad, it's going to affect us on a smaller level just around the corner. And we know with Trump, don't get me to preaching about Trump. Trump has put Walt Disney people running the government and guys from Fox. And, you might see the guy from Nickelodeon running the freaking army, right? And these guys have their own agenda and they're writing real laws that's going to affect us already. And you don't think while they're writing these laws, they're using these cases like Diddy to show how, they because typically in life they try to put different races in the same box anyway, right? So I'm giving you guys some real game today. I'm telling you what I know. I said in this trial every day, and believe me, it's going to have it's going to have a major. Now we got to take Diddy out the equation. Is what I'm saying. Diddy has basically, we could frame it this way: Diddy has gotten us in some deep water. I would say the other word, but I'm trying to be Facebook, YouTube friendly. He's going to leave us holding the bag because they're going to throw him in a cell until he forget his existence. But they're going to take his case and they're going to start putting it on all of us. But I mean, you can behave yourself and you can avoid it. That's my message today. But some brothers are just going to do it regardless. And some guys don't know because, again, like I told you, how your uncles kind of guide you a lot in life as men, or your dad, or usually your dad's not around. That's what it is, folks. And if you do have a dad around, then God bless America. Good for you. Okay. But they think it's okay to do this stuff, and it really isn't. So that's my message today. You have to stop listening to these crazy channels on YouTube that are telling you that, hey, you can have an average woman in life, but you can have a great woman if you throw her some money and fly her to Vegas. And that's where you're going to catch that Fed case. And believe me, Diddy has put out, they said, over 10 million perhaps for these attorneys. And believe me, the government works, they get paid to, these 6 ladies that are up there putting the screws to Diddy right now. And they operate at a high level. And I'm going to close out with this point. When it came to Comey, and we're talking about, Comey was the one, he was the FBI director that went up against Trump, right? His daughter is the one who's presiding over Diddy's case. And when I tell you she's strong and she will put the screws to you, believe me, if she's on the docket, you might as well just go ahead and take a deal. But she came back to that agent on Wednesday, and she said to this agent, she says, did Diddy fly this worker from New York to LA? Did he sex traffic? And the defense tried to say objection, but it was too late. The guy said yes. You cannot unring the bell. How are you going to get around when they have the records of you flying somebody from one state to the other? Now the jury has to just say, oh yeah, I'm going to ignore that because I was a fan and I used to do the Diddy Bop. You know what I'm saying? That could happen, but that's not how you want to calculate your life as far as risk go. I invest in the market every day, and there's certain factors. When I see 2 + 2 is 4, then that's when I want to buy. But if the numbers are not adding up, there's no win. So why would you invest? So for to be a billionaire or whatever it is, and to lose control of your life to the point where there have been debates in this trial that Diddy gets 300 minutes a month for his cell phone. I mean, cell phone. It is a cell phone for his prison or jail phone. And he couldn't talk to his attorneys and they couldn't figure out. They kept investigating day after day. It went into weeks. And they're like, Diddy only used 72 minutes. Why can't he use the other 300? And then the judge came back and said, they investigated. They could find nothing wrong. But now you're a billionaire, and now you're sitting somewhere. You're going back in time to having only 3 minutes to talk on the phone a month. That's what's going to happen to you if you don't take the heed for the warning. I gave you guys some good game. Hopefully you'll pay attention to what I'm saying, because if you don't, and if you're out here just stringing girls along, that's going to turn on the best date, it's going to turn into a civil case for you. But on the worst one, the feds are going to come after you, and they're going to be using cases like this to write. They're going to be writing new law. Believe me, it's going to be a mess. Let me look at some of the comments. All right. I don't think they care about the transportation card. There's 2 charges for the transportation card. Charge number 3 and charge number 5. Transportation across state lines. And believe me, they do care about it. Okay. Namdi Okola says, I'm a qualified accountant too. Now, I'm glad you said that. I think it's Namdi. So, on this particular case, let me vibe off of what he just said. They removed the black juror from this case, right? They replaced him with the Caucasian juror that's an accountant. And this case has a lot of problems about Diddy paying for workers with cash. So now the jurors, they don't have to call an accountant. They have an accountant on deck. Like, all I can say to you, because I don't know how this is going to turn out, it could be a hung jury, maybe, but it don't look good as far as how this is lining up. I'm telling you what I know. I've been there every day. All right, Mel, you think jurors are robots. Technically, he may be guilty, but vote that knowing it's a 15-year sentence. Okay, we'll see what happens. I can't tell you how many years it's going to be, but I can tell you what they gave R. Kelly. Um, or maybe he'll get 5 years. Anything can happen. Maybe he gets no time because of a hung jury or something. It could go either way, but I'm just telling you the vibe. Okay, got me second guessing bringing women into my house. Yeah, this is what my message is about. See, let me talk about that too, bringing women into your house. Okay, thank you for saying that because this is a point that I miss. And this is the big part of my message. Jane Doe would do anything for Diddy. I mean, she was doing a lot, ordering the escorts, and she even wanted to do a 3 night special. She did 3 men in one night. It was all over the place, just stuff that the average Joe wouldn't know about. The only time she really had a problem with Diddy is when she would do those type of things, and then she'd go on Instagram and see Diddy buying what did he buy, Rolls Royce for Young Miami, and that set her off. So you can bring women into your home or whatever you want to do. You have to live your life, right? But my point is, when they're happy with you, you could be okay. But if you're doing things like Diddy and you think that it's consensual or whatever you think, it may not always be that way because once you break up or maybe you have a kid and now things are rough between you, as in this case, now the narrative changes and you won't be able to fight it, brother. Believe me. You could by the time you fight it, you're gonna pay so much for an attorney, you're gonna wish you had of just move with intelligence. That's all I'm telling you. How was the jurors' reactions that you noticed when Agnifilo was talking? Contrary to everybody else, I felt like they did not connect with him. I felt like the jurors were connecting with Comey more, but everybody else is saying the opposite of me. So we'll just have to see how this goes. Facts, you got to vet these women. Okay. Well, they have to vet men too. That's for sure. I'm going to do another show for women. So, there's things that need to be said about this case to help them too. But this show is for men. Okay. And I'm just average. Yep, I understand. Okay. How did you feel about her ending with him being number one on the? Yeah, that really bothered me. JC Talks. It almost made me feel like she resented him being on the Forbes, so they had to teach him a lesson. Now I'm not saying that that's what happened, but I've told someone last night. Last night I was at an event with Diddy's family. They've chosen me to cover, because I do cover. They follow my channel. They're probably listening now, so shout out to you guys. I try to tell the story in the best way possible, but I don't pull any punches. But I'm glad you guys still follow the channel. So last night, um, I was out with his family, King, and so forth. I won't get into all that, but just covering the event. Um, it felt like she had a severe problem with his success, and now they're going to teach him a lesson. That's just what I felt. Since you're asking me. Comey that lied, and it's been proven several times. Yeah, there were a lot of problems with the government in this case have not been totally honest. Boy, I'm going to get myself in trouble today. I've been in court, folks. Let me give you an example how they were not honest, and the defense actually pointed it out. They bring in these charts on charts, and the charts show all of the text messages. And so as you're sitting there, you're thinking that these are all the text messages within a 2-year period. Okay. So you see all the text, they're going through a line by line. And this is a problem. Diddy's chief of staff, Christina Coram, also known as KK, she's getting involved in helping move the sex workers from the airport to the hotel. She's problem solving. She's supposed to be running the company, but she actually lived with Diddy, and she basically managed his entire life. So that's how they're trying to paint the picture for this RICO, that is one big unit. So, that's just how that went. But anyway, um, when it came down to this chart, the text messages showed um, every assistant. It showed the security guards. It showed everyone. It showed a few things from Cassie or Diddy. So then the defense went up there and it said, okay, pull up this text message here. And in the text message, Cassie says, I can't wait to have those black big D's, to lick them top to bottom. That's what the text message said. So the defense says, so wait a minute, who put this chart together? And the agent says it was the trial team that put it together. Why didn't you put this text message that happened at this point? It should be right here on the chart. Why isn't it there? So you're not being honest. Another time, Diddy tells Cassie, um, this could be our last freak off. And Cassie says, I don't want this to be our last freak off. I want this to be our first freak off for the rest of our lives. And so the defense, and mind you guys, I have no notes in front of me. This comes from me sitting in court paying attention. I try to bring you guys solid information. So the defense says, why didn't you put this on your chart? Since you're bringing up all of Diddy's dirt, how come you're not putting these other people that should be co-conspirators probably? Why you're not talking about their dirt? So that was a part where people in general felt like it was kind of not being so honest. Okay, guys, hit the like button, share. I think I've given you guys some good advice. I mean, if you take heed, I think you're going to come out on top. But it's a very serious matter. Let's see here. What else do we have? Sakina Rao, shout out to you. Yeah, Marie. Okay, Democrats had it for years and done nothing. All right, right. Like, share. Thank you, Michonne. Keep speaking the truth, Mel. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate you every day. Believe that. Marie, defense had a particular strategy, so why no witnesses? Focus was on feds targeting Diddy. Maybe why? I don't know, but I will tell you this. If Diddy loses, they'll never hear the end of that not calling witnesses. They might as well go ahead and hang it up, because the people at large are going to say, well, they didn't call witnesses. That's the problem. So, okay, tell the truth, Mel. If you don't, if they don't respect you for that, then sorry for them. Right on, JC. Okay, good point. Thank you, Marie. Thank you guys for all the support. Yeah, Kid Cudi, right. Namdi, he was hot in 2011. Right. There was a lot of problems with his story too, Kid Cudi. So let me just break this down for you guys, and then I'll let you go. I have 2 shows more today, so I need to take some time to myself. 3:00, I'm bringing on criminal defense attorney. His name is Calvin Johnson. We do a show every week at 3 p.m. my time, and we're going to really break down this case. He's representing quite a few rappers now, and he's represented some big names in the past. So there's a few questions you guys want me to ask him already. So you could go to my community page. I have questions. I have put up a chart for you guys to put questions there. So if it's something you want me to ask him, or you can just put it in the comments. But anyway, getting back to Kid Cudi, let me show you how technical these cases are and how it's still a bad reflection on Diddy's case. Kid Cudi, I kind of have to tell the whole story. I don't think I could just cut it down. So I'm going to give you as like a quick quick synopsis of what happened. Diddy took Cassie to Kid Cudi to be a producer. He started knocking her down. Let's put it that way, right? They had some thing going on. All right. Diddy finds out about it, and he goes to Capricorn Clark's house, who is his assistant. And Diddy is paying for all of their cell phones and paying for all of their rent. Cassie is basically living with him, well, with him most of the time, but she also has her own apartment. But Diddy is paying for everything. He shows up to Capricorn Clark's house at 5:30 in the morning, banging on the door. They kind of felt like maybe he was banging with the gun. The defense refuted that she even had a gun, but it's still, you heard both sides. It sounded rather convincing to me, but it could have been a gun, may not. We'll never know. But anyway, he goes in the house of Capricorn. He says, "Oh, so you didn't tell me she's effing this in, right?" He told her, "Get your clothes on. We're gonna go kill this in." Okay, so they go to his house. Diddy and Rue, who is his security guard, they go into the house. Capricorn Clark in the car. She calls to Cassie, who is with Kid Cudi at the time. Cassie puts the phone on speaker, and Capricorn tells Cassie Diddy is in Kid Cudi's house. Kid Cudi gets very upset. He calls Diddy. He was like, "You in my house, N-word?" And he starts to race there. Capricorn Clark says that he raced there. There was this whole um, vehicles chasing each other and all that. The police officer said that that's all malarkey. There was no car chase. So there's so much fluff and things going on. But here's the key part. Burglary, which is not a predicate act that's in this, but the media kept saying that it was burglary. What happened was when the call first came in the morning, it came in the officer explained that when the dispatch take a call, they determine like, is this a gun? There was no gun mentioned. Is this a robbery? Is it a burglary? So she labeled it as a burglary. When the two officers responded to the house with sirens and lights on. I'm going off memory. I know this case like the back of my hand. I was there every day. They go to the house. They see a Cadillac in front of Kid Cudi's house. I did a video where I actually show you Kid Cudi's house and all the burnt car, the arson, and all that. So go back into my stories. I'm going to do a lot more of that, showing you guys different exhibits and so forth. Police officer gets there. The black Escalade pulls off. They do not ensue. They go inside the house. The officer said that the gate was locked. One officer jumped over the gate. He came and opened it, but the house was unlocked. They went inside the house. They saw some gifts on the table. They said it was luxury bags or whatever. Kid Cudi came in. When he came, he had testified that Diddy actually opened the gifts. It was around Christmas time. Diddy opened the gifts that he had wrapped on the table. Perhaps he thought that some of the gifts were for Cassie or what have you. So the officer said that they searched the house. They did not find any person, a few things out of place or what have you, but nothing to trigger a crime. When he went back out about 20 minutes later, they then saw the black Escalade going down the hill. And both times they saw the Escalade, he notated the license plate number. But this time when that black Escalade is going down the hill, he ran the plate number, he said, in the car in the digital system, mobile system. It came back to Bad Boy Entertainment. The officer testified, folks, that this whole event was put on the police report as a trespass, not a burglary. And that's probably why you don't see burglary in the predicate acts. You do get arson. But let me talk about the arson. Several days later, Kid Cudi has a long driveway. I have a video. You have to go see it. It's labeled Kid Cudi's house or something. Kid Cudi has his black Porsche that he was driving that day. It has a canvas top. And the officer testified, the arson detector rather, he testified that the car was sitting right by Kid Cudi's garage. It had two cars parked behind it. So the investigator said that they think it was a targeted for that car because you couldn't see the car from the road. So some individual went over to Kid Cudi's car. They cut open the roof. I have all the exhibits on my video. They dropped in a Molotov cocktail. It was a 40 bottle of Old English beer full of gasoline and a woman's perhaps luxury silk scarf. And they stuck that in the bottle. They lit it on fire and they dropped it in the car. But because the way they dropped it, the handkerchief fell out too early, so it did not explode like what they had expected. And so the arson detective said that had it went off and detonated the way it should have, it would have set the house on fire and likely the cars that were behind it as well. Now, they found two fingerprints on the bottle on that Old English 40 bottle, and they sent it in for a report. And guess what? The fingerprints went missing. So just like the video that went missing from the video you see on CNN, the original went missing. They paid for somebody to go away. Well, in court, the prosecutors were trying to imply that Diddy paid someone to make the fingerprints, those two fingerprints, go away. But they never, we never heard they didn't close the gap on a lot of these stories. Like what was the final say so? Like for instance, when the police officers and the arson detective, when they were questioned, like, okay, did you order these test results? They didn't even bother to follow up on the results. Like, why would you order fingerprints or whatever results and then you never go back and see who it could have been? One thing is very significant in this case is that the DNA from the bottle, it came back to a woman, not a man. So the defense used that to show in the case of Diddy, well, the DNA tells the story. Maybe it was some other woman that Kid Cudi had a problem with. Now, here's a point of something that the defense did not really touch on that I heard in the case. And I'm like, man, you leaving the door open. In the case, they testified that Kid Cudi had another instance where someone had broken into his home. And he had the fingerprint cards from that case that he gave to the police officers too. Now, Kid Cudi testified that before he started dealing with Cassie, he never had any problems in his life. And after him and Diddy made amends, he never had another problem. But I think they should have used that whole story where Kid Cudi had a problem before, because he also had these fingerprints on record from another event. And maybe that person, maybe he's a player too. And this other woman came and said to call, I'm just saying, as a defense attorney, if I was the one presiding, and I'm not an attorney, but just common sense, if I was doing the closing arguments, I would have brought up everything that I found to be troublesome, especially with Bonner hanging over the balcony. All right, guys. So I'm about to wrap up now so I could do my next show. Let's see. Sakina says, this is sad as fuck. I'm really wondering if we are characterizing things as mental illness for just bad behaviors, especially for a company name. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This is true. WB says, is this projection? Could be. All right. Yeah, did it blow 500,000 in one day on Cassie, according to Sean, and she was out there cheating with Kid Cudi, and the escorts was out Diddy for a man who was crazy for her. Yep, that's true. That's true. Okay, Michonne, thanks for the support. Udo on the go, shout out to you. Too many reasonable doubts. I forgot to put on I'm putting the link out here, guys, if anybody wants to come up. If you want to come up, you just have to show your camera because I don't want any surprises. So there you have it. If you want to come up, hit the link and come on through. We can have a discussion real quick. Thanks for all the comments, guys. I really appreciate it. We won't be able to hit them all because I have other shows to come back on for, and I have to have a few moments. So true. What was your saying? Cassie played Diddy, who was helping her play? Yep, exactly. All 12 jurors are not convicting him. The public are spit. I expect the jury. Quite possible that it'll be a hung jury. Quite possible. Yep. Marie says they conspired. Yeah, she did drugs before Diddy. That came out in court. WW, what people won't say to drag others. Okay. JC committed perjury. Yeah, definitely. A lot of perjury was happening in this case. No doubt about it. But again, there's an overwhelming amount of, they proved a lot of stuff. So let's not get it twisted, folks. I'm not taking away from that, but I'm just telling you how going forward, you have to be very judicious about how you're moving. All right. Dakota says, Sir, how do we take news serious in a Yankee hat? I've been disrespected by so many Yankee fans. I don't feel welcome. Oh, man. That's a good one right there. All right. Levitas says, like the stream, family. Shout out to you. Thanks for subscribing if you have. Thanks for liking the video. I appreciate the support. Yeah, cocktail. That's right, Sakina Ra. Oh, Sakina, I need to make you a moderator. I can't do it. It only allows me to make you a moderator on my cell phone. I don't understand that. This thing is so limited. Okay, Mel is speaking the straight facts. Oh, we have somebody coming. Oh, Michonne is coming. Oh my God, I feel blessed. Here we go, guys.
Hi, hi
Welcome.
guys. Thank you, thank you. I'm at work supporting, but I just had a couple questions. The first question would be, um, for all of the information that we got and the fact that it came out about the mental health issues, do you see a problem with the fact that the defense did not bring any of that like as part of their defense or call any witnesses?
Well, let me tell you my experience, okay? I'll give it to you this way. I'm in court every day taking notes, right? Probably more than the jurors, like notes, because I'm coming back home doing shows for different channels like Tasha K, whatever. Okay. What would happen is the case went on so long, I started to forget details from 2 weeks earlier. So I felt like the defense, if they had taken it further away from the goalposts, they would have stood a better chance of the jury cooling down on some of the points that were really hot right now that the prosecution had presented. So by not bringing any witnesses, I just can't wrap my head around it. But then again, I'm not an attorney.
Okay, and then just I just have one last comment. So for me, I'm a little bit conflicted about this whole case. I've been like watching you, a couple other people, but mostly following your commentary. But I guess my problem is I get that these were willing participants, and I wholeheartedly agree that some people were not truthful and honest or their stories didn't jive up. But how do we, like, if we're so divided about this, like, how do we expect the jury to, like, can they actually get uh, a verdict? And do you really think we're going to sit through this? Like, will they retry this, or will they just say
Okay,
we're gonna
so
drop
I'll,
it?
I'll tell you this to answer your question. Maybe I shouldn't say this. I'm going to say it in a very judicious way. I was under the impression that the juror that was removed, that he was leaning toward Diddy from what I observed. But I can't explain why in full detail, but it came to my knowledge that he wasn't. Okay? So let that sink into you that he wasn't necessarily leaning toward Diddy, which most of us thought. So with that being said, I don't think we could technically read the jurors, but I think there's been such an overwhelming amount of information in this case. Like, it's one thing to hear the witnesses come on and they tell their stories, right? But when you see, let me tell you, I'm sitting there, and I want to preface it by saying this: a lot of us outside of the courtroom, we're basing our story because we're listening to all these big channels, and then they're slanting it their way. The jury is actually looking and listening to the witnesses and seeing the charts and the prosecutors and all that. But from these charts, they pinned it down. They didn't even call in Christina Coram. They didn't call in any of the security guards. You know why? Because they had all of their text messages tying them to these crimes on these charts. So they felt they had that strong of a case, right? Now, I think it's possible that a couple of jurors or whatever might swing his way. You might get a hung jury, but I don't think it's going to take them long to come to their conclusion. That's just my take on it.
Okay. And I just want to say thank you. I follow you, and I'm really keep up the good work because I like that you're giving us the information like pretty much unbiased, just factual and with integrity. So, and not all the flair because we just want the facts. So, thank
All right.
you for your coverage.
All right. I'm going to do a show, for the ladies to just in regards to this case. So please try to look out and support me on that too, and maybe
Absolutely.
come up and say something. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you. All right. So anybody else want to come up, speak now or forever hold your peace? Because I'm about to peace out, folks. The government, Ilya says the government can't do that, though they said KK and D Rock are co conspirators. They can't change and say it's a one man RICO now. Okay. Yeah. Well, they are. So that gets a little sketchy. I didn't want to get into that. But it goes back to what I was saying. Traditionally, when we think about a RICO, a lot of TV and movies shape what we see, right? So we think about the Gotti family versus the Gambino family. You have people making money, people being killed, right? Because you're trying to send a message and so forth. In this case, it's just like a will. That's what they use in court. And you have the spokes, and Diddy sits in the middle, and he's manipulating all the people basically within his organization. But the real problem here is like again, when I told you they show the charts, you have KK that's running the enterprise, the company. She lives with Diddy. That's a side point. But when Diddy is indulging with the sex workers, she's getting involved. It also came out in court that Jane and Diddy had a love contract, so they had some sort of agreement. And I was led to believe it had something to do with these freak offs because this is the way I illustrate it. Let's say, for instance, you and I we're both selling a car together, right? And we're going to split it 50-50. The difference. The minute that car sells or whatever, you want your cut, you reach out, say, hey, send me that money, whatever, right? So in this particular case, after the freak off, Jane Doe would say, okay, I really need my money because I got to buy some furniture. And so Diddy came back and he's saying, I'm going to send you 15,000, baby girl. Then the next day, they show how Christina Coram, who's running the business, she hits up Jane Doe and says, what is your bank routing number so we can wire you the money? See what I'm saying? So the government tried to tie all that in as, or let's say Jules, he flies from JFK. They have his itinerary. They could tell you what time he flew, his flight number. He lands in LAX. I saw on the paper. I mean, I'm writing it down, folks. They have it. They have all the documents, and they show you that Diddy pays for this with the American Express. They tie it all down. They show you that Jules actually walks through the lobby, and they had video. Even though it was years ago, somehow they had video. They said these hotels usually keep the records for 10 years. Okay. So Christina Coram gets involved to have that sex worker picked up at the airport and brought to the hotel. So see what I'm saying? That's how they're saying it's a criminal enterprise with this tentacles reaching into the crime because they brought out in the closing arguments basically let me give it to you like this and I really have to go. Okay, this will help you understand what I'm saying. You have racketeering and you have 8 predicate acts that they chose to focus on: drug distribution, arson, sex trafficking is actually one, kidnapping. So they go through and they break down each and every one of these. Okay, they break it all down. Drug distribution, they said at one freak off. Now, one freak off, there's like 6 or 7 drugs, right? One freak off. And they said to have a crime, you only need one drug. So let's say that the drug of choice was ecstasy, right? That's the one I heard most. So that one drug is a predicate act, basically. Okay. You don't have to sell the drug. That's what they said. You don't have to sell the drug. I can hand that drug to you as my friend, and I've committed a crime. So that's your predicate act. But the prosecutor broke down that there were hundreds of freak offs. So all you needed was two of those to have a RICO. Okay. Here's another one. They showed on the screen, and I counted 27 sex workers. Okay. Pick anyone you pick any one of those that flew across state lines or that were paid. They all the ones that came in testified they were paid. Another predicate act, and you have 27 to choose from. And then you get into the kidnapping. Then you get so they some of the predicate acts have hundreds of occurrences. You see the problem? Man, I could go on forever about this case, and I might go on another 2 or 3 months because I'm going to be breaking down a lot of the things I couldn't do during the trial, like the exhibits and all that type of stuff. But there's so much to learn from this. I hope that some of you men that have listened to me today, I hope you come to some point of understanding something that might help you avoid heartache and pain in your life and also make better choices going forward. I'm coming back on today at 3 o'clock. Please come back, tune in, check me out. I have a criminal defense attorney. I'm also going to try to get Candace. Oh, this Tuesday at 7 p.m., Candace Kelly and I are doing a live show in New Jersey. It's already maxed out. I'm so sorry about that. I wish I could have gotten the news to you that it was going to be a limited event, but people responded so quickly. So I'll be in the house live and I'll be breaking this whole case down according to whatever they ask me. And I have so much going on, but I'm definitely excited about continuing to cover the cases going forward. Thank you guys for the support. Every like you give, you could be at any channel you want, but you guys chose to come listen to me. And sometimes people, I hear weird things. Like somebody wrote me last night, said, "Oh, why are you so stiff?" Because I had like 3 neck surgeries. So there you have it. Okay, so I don't really have a choice in the matter. Hopefully that makes you feel better. You know why this guy is pretty stiff. All right. Okay. So that's what it is. I had an accident. So thank you for tuning in, guys. I respect how people feel, but I'm not taking it personal. Believe that. Um, Please continue to factor in what I told you and let this case be something that'll help you in the future and also the next generations to come to avoid this heartache and pain. And if you don't beat people, especially women and children, or anyone for that fact, and if you try to treat everybody right, I think your life will be in a much better place to where you don't have a person like Comey standing before you trying to lock your black ass up. Thank you.